So it's funny actually after rereading this chapter because I usually read it like every chapter at least twice before I do a review. Like I do the initial read and then like as I get stuff set up, I usually read it again and then if you count. Usually I read stuff, as I'm recording it, just like, I have the panels open just for like if I forgot like a character name or I gotta, look up a specific detail. That might count as three. But either way, when I read this chapter 12 for Build King, the first thing I thought of was like, it was a bit of a meathead chapter, like the big obvious focus that, it kind of gives near the end, like very heavily on Tonkachi, because we see Tonkachi just shock everyone there. I thought that was actually really cool just in general. But the chapter itself was way more on information, not just on the power system, because they explain what Vigor essentially is. Like, Vigor is the energy source of this series, and they're talking about how out of the 60 million people that are in the Build-On organization, only 0.01% of them, can use Vigor abilities. And that's like, what, like 600,000? That's one of those things where it's like, there's a lot in reality, but there's not a lot in the grand picture. Because it's like 600,000 people is a lot, but out of 60 million, like it is 0.01%. That is a fraction of a fraction. Like, it is very small. But I liked how they explained it. I like saying how like it's the very essence of all living things, like energy. The energy which one, is stumbling over my words. The energy which allows one to survive. So they show it like, oh, in the desert or like in the cold, your body would use vigor in order to fight back against the elements or something. Like it's saying how in nature, they say homeostasis is the power to maintain the status quo. Trees are tens of thousands of year old rocks and other inorganic things that don't erode even the harshest conditions. So it is just like this supernatural energy. And I really like the panel, like there's like a desert and there's like this massive tree coming out of it. I really like the weird landscape and designs that especially Shimobakuro does. Whenever he does like a city, like there's very rare times it's just like, oh yeah, it's just a plain city. Like there's usually something very strange about it. And I always look forward to whatever his weird twist on things is. But while they're just saying like the whole thing about the what is it, nail moles? I like their design too, especially like when I just saw it initially. I didn't think they were that kind of crazy, but I really like the big chin spike. I think that actually makes them look a lot cooler. Because they're explaining at one point that that people used to use them as nails. Like, they do drop another, like, foreshadowing of, like, an older thing, saying how, like, I think it said demon builders used to use them as like, actual nails, which is, get pretty spooky when you think about it. Not just the idea of like, oh yeah, they're, some form of demon builders, like some form of creature or whatever the lore is that will like eventually expand upon it, if Build King survives. But the idea of just like, if you had houses with like these things used as nails, I wonder if they'd like just use the heads or if they would use the whole body. Because it's kind of like how they have soldier army ants. Like, if you ever look up those, the soldiers have these massive mandibles that look like just huge hooks, and people used to use them to close wounds. Like, they'd get one, they'd put it up to a wound and have it bite down and then rip the head off the body, and because their jaws are so strong, they would hold on that. So it was like a nature way of doing sutures, and that's just how I see like this used, and I actually really like that, because it's using an aspect of nature in a way that seems primitive but believable. I did really like that. But while they're explaining it, they're talking about like how this is going to be, like, just by default, going to be knocking a lot of people out of this. Because I figure that they would need to have something like that. Like, if they're going to do some battles, like, 97 people, like, that's a lot. So, dwindle down all of the fodder guys, get to just the good people. Like, again, this is one of those tropes that no one ever gets tired of. But, okay, tournament, sweet. Everyone loves tournament arcs. Getting, like, dwindling down the people, and so you're just getting the hype people. Like, you're not going to have any of them fodders. You're just going to get to strong people, or at least strong to a degree. They're even, like, fodder amongst these guys we know is above the, a majority of the people that are going to be in the overall picture. Like, even if it's just, like, whoever survives the weakest out of them is still more impressive than, all the people that got cut out. But when they they show like all these different hammers. Like, okay, yeah, go pick whatever hammer you want to use. That alone actually gives like a tell on the characters, because what kind of hammer they used and how they used it says a lot about them. And I really liked it when they're like explaining to it, like, oh, they're like, oh, unless you use special vigor, you know, whatever that is for the future, you're not gonna kill the nail moles. So like, you're just gonna knock them out. You know, they should be fine. But at the same time, they're gonna fight back. They even explain how casualties on construction sites, happen all the time. And because of the way that this world works, you're like, imagine being in the Pokemon world, but all the Pokemon are hostile. And granted, there's a lot of like cutesy, fun Pokemon. But there's a lot of Pokemon that are just really powerful and dangerous. So, in the Pokemon world, in reality, like people going out and like you get in a situation like a bunch of dangerous Pokemon are not happy, you can die. So that is kind of like the same mindset here. I mean, let's imagine like in Toriko, like for those who did read Toriko, like going out in the gourmet world, it's like if you're strong enough to do stuff out there, sure, but like you can very easily get off. So, like they're just explaining like essentially like, okay, the rules and setup of the game. Tonkaichi's just like, okay, this is gonna be easy. Like I fully expected Tonkaichi to not struggle in this. The only way I expected him to struggle in any way is if the nail moles were too fast for him, because he's a very strength-based fighter. We haven't seen him in any outright fights yet, but we have seen displays that he is physically strong, like to a high degree. Where that is overall, who knows? But he's definitely strong, and he immediately goes for the heaviest hammer. Like, he gets 5 tons, like this big, massive hammer. And he's not like holding it up with no struggle. Like, he looks like he's not like having a problem holding up. You can see that he is like, there's a little bit of struggle in there, a tiny bit of just holding it. You see like his veins bomb, but it's not like he's sweating. Like, it's just heavy for him. It's not like I am doing everything I can to hold this up. But you see the other characters pick their hammers, and they're also mentioning for these 10 edifices. Like, these are, I'm guessing like the big deals of Build On. These are their top 10. That like the numbers that they came here with already like an idea of like, okay, these guys are going to be, a value. They said, I think 12, 38, 44, and 60. I'm looking for the panel right now. They mentioned them specifically because I was trying to figure out when I was reading it, like who those guys are, and then who are the people that are outside of those numbers that they're going to be looking at. I'm trying to find the exact panel of those guys. I think it's like right in the middle of the chapter. Yeah, they mentioned 12, 38, 44, and 60. But also like there's characters that are going to be in there that are not like those 4 numbers. If it was just those 4 and like Tonkaichi and Rengai, I'd be like, well, shit, like it isn't gonna be 6. But we do see other characters like the one dude Eliki, like he's number 21. He's outside of the number, and he's got like I'm trying to see if it showed the weight that he got. Yeah, 10 kilograms. That's like, I don't know the exact number conversion for kilograms, but I know it's like a little bit around twice. So what, like 20 pounds or something. So he's got like a fairly still heavy size one, but nothing crazy. Bar picks up a 1 ton. You have this, I don't think any other characters really get anything kind of crazy for like, in the ton areas besides Tonkaichi and Bar. But like you see one person hold 500 kilograms. That's still, what, like 1,000 pounds? Like, that's still heavy. Like, that's the only other person that kind of get anything crazy. Because you see this girl, she's got 5 kilograms. One girl's got, assuming that's a girl, because one of them is definitely a chick. But one of them, maybe, I don't know, pretty boy, has 1 kilogram. This short, like, dark-skinned dude gets 50. Also, he's got a unibrow, I just noticed. But I think those 4, actually, looking at the panel, are those 4 the ones that are, like, you're supposed to look out for? Because I just noticed, I know most of them. I know that the short dude, the person who looks like they're always blushing, I'm assuming that's a chick, I don't know. The weird drape hair that looks like an older character, and I can't tell if it's, again, also male or female. We got, like, the lipstick, but a little bit of, like, a square jaw, so I assume it's male. I don't know. And that character, I'm wondering if it, like, is a secret villain or something, because there's, like, definitely some ominousness about this person. And I assume there's going to be some form of antagonist in this, whether it's, like, an outright villain, or it's just, like, an enemy for Tonkaichi and the crew, someone they're competing against. I don't know. Either way, like, that's who I assume this is going to be. Could be wrong, could be one of these other guys. But, yeah, Eliki, he does it really fast. Like, he takes one out swiftly. And his panel is shown speed and precision, I would assume. Because his is only, again, like what, like 20 pounds or something, 10 kilograms, whatever the exact number. I don't know. I know somebody that knows kilograms is going to correct me in the comments. But his is shown in like speed and precision. You see Bar, he's got the 1 ton, and he does it with 1 arm. So he's one of the ones that is very raw physical strength. The one dude who seems like very odd, like he's in the armor, Konichika, he's number 44. Actually, is he one of the ones that they said they were going to look at? He's, because they, 44, yeah. So I'm wondering about him, because he's really weird. The fact that he seems a little bit scared, a little bit nervous, but clearly he's somebody that's being looked out for. And he's got like this weirdness of his suit. Very curious of what exactly like his thing's gonna be. Oh, the other person that was shown in that fort, Teku, is number 6, so that's not one of the people to look out for. Moguni, he's number 38, so he was one of the people. He just like is like the 50 kilogram one, so that's like around 100 pounds. He just knocks one out. Nothing kind of crazy with his. Like the ones that were I think the most interesting shown were Tonkachi's obviously, but also Eliki's. I liked his, just the way that his, again, like looked very this quick, like he just bopped them really quickly. So I'm guessing with him, and he's like Plaster, that he's probably going to be like a speed-based warrior. And then their weird techniques is like I can't even really guess how they're going to fight entirely, other than like maybe like some weird variation of another style. Like what if he's one of those quick draw swordsmen, but it's done in like a weird way with his Plaster stuff. I don't really know. But outside of that, like I said, like him and Tonkachi. Like Renga, I'm actually very happy that Renga did as well as he did. Like he looks like he's sweating a little bit, but he's still able to do it. So it's good on him. Good that he's getting by. His flex, I'm guessing, will be something in way more like if they have to do something more kind of clean, kind of just like, okay, you have to think a little bit easier for this, because this is outright just, hey, we're clearing numbers. Super basic. We're only letting people who can get past this straightforward test go by. So if there's something like when we saw him, chop up that giant log, if there's something like that it maybe takes a little bit more smarts or a little bit more kind of technique to it, he should be fine. Like maybe he'll be the one to compete against Eliki, because they both have that, that vibe to him, again, like speed, precision, technique. Whereas we saw Tonkachi already kind of go against Bar, so we know that Tonkachi is way stronger, and there's a gap between like if a character's outright stronger and it's like, well, maybe he's skilled in something else. But we know that Tonkachi and Bar seem to have the same style, just brute force, physical brute force, hitting hard, being tanks. And Tonkachi is above him by a lot, so that fight isn't going to be a thing. My guess is Bar will probably be more relevant later. Like maybe he'll be one of those characters who we saw early as like a jerk, and he end up getting some like character development. We see him become like an ally over time, becoming a better person. But my guess is in this arc, like the next time we really see him up doing stuff, he's probably going to be used to get flexed on. Like maybe whoever is the villain for this competition, whoever is the antagonist, whether it's that Konchika guy and his weird ominous mask, or Haka as the drapery hair looking character. Maybe it's one of the. I assume it's one of them. And Haka just looks a little strange. I was hoping he'd have like a bit of a cooler look, but maybe his like odd, like he's got like a really old man spooky face. Maybe that's like a disguise. Kind of like thinking back. I don't remember the character name because it's been so long. But like Yu Yu Hakusho in that first tournament, not the Dark Tournament, but the one before that. That one dude who, I don't want to go into specifics because in case somebody, maybe they haven't read or watched Yu Yu Hakusho, but that one guy who ended up being like, he uses like a disguise on himself, and then, was revealed later. Like, what if one of these characters is actually like a member of whoever the main bad guy group is, and they were trying to infiltrate, and it's just like, oh, this is like the first opponent kind of thing, and like Tonkachi gets to flex on him. But yeah, Tonkachi in this, using a 5-ton hammer, swinging down and crushing the entire arena, was really cool. I like that a lot. We didn't get the reaction of any of the big people, any of those 10 edifices, but like we saw like the general crowd reaction. They seemed really impressed. And the people that are adjacent to Nana and Cork's there, but like anybody like in Nana's like circle were impressed by Tonkachi. Like they say he's like, they're like, oh, they're really the cream of the crop. You see like how well like some of these guys did their own thing, but Tonkachi's Tonkaichi's obviously like is a straightforward like wow. That guy's got some potential there, and we even see that the one dude with the mask, like the short dude in the tank top, he's like laughing. He seems really happy, like he's liking what he's seeing. I can't wait to see when some of these bigger characters, like, you know, maybe give some credit to Tonkaichi. I'm gonna be really hyped about that because I assume that if we do any technique-based things, like, Tonkaichi will be in trouble if there's anything that's gonna require like a steadier hand, like something trickier to do. Unless he's teamed up with somebody, and maybe, you know, maybe he can get teamed up with somebody, make a new friend. I like his dynamic so far with Eliki. Like in the last chapter, I thought his was pretty funny, and Eliki seems to be around their age, so I'm guessing he could be a potential member of the main crew. But we'll see. I did genuinely like this chapter. It was pretty straightforward, and like, okay, the first chunk we found out like we got some information. We got some just general information on like the power system in the series. Just like how it's going to play into things. Like, it's not just like Tonkaichi and them aren't just physically strong. They have this vigor energy to them. Because that's one of the things, like, on top of it, is like when you compared powers, like, that's a very straightforward thing when it comes to a series. Like, what is the main character's power? Tonkaichi, up until this point, it's like he's just physically strong and he's got a hammer. But we know his hammer is powered by vigor. But we didn't really know what vigor was. So now we know that vigor is like an aspect of their power source. So he can probably learn something new, or his power will evolve with whatever new information we find out about vigor. And maybe Tonkaichi will have some other cool attacks that he can use his vigor in order to you know, just to implement. So one thing also, actually, on top of that is I could have just imagined Tonkaichi using his vigor hammer in this. Like, he probably would have done this. Like, if he went 10 meter and then swung at full power, there would probably be such a massive crater there instead of just breaking up. Like, he broke up the arena, like, platform, but that thing would probably just be a massive hole in the ground. There would just be, like, the stairs gone. Like, it would just be everything beyond the crowd is just a hole. And I think would have been really hyped too, but, like, at the same time, like, you know, Tonkaichi didn't use his full strength. He even mentions the House Eaters were a bigger deal than this. And I like that a lot. Like, it shows Shovel's method of training these guys does work. It is pretty crazy, though, when he's just like, hey, kids, you live on this dangerous island, and hopefully you survive. But I'm sure he's like, saw, like, some potential in him. Like, maybe he can tell, like, how much vigor is, like, in a person's body or something. Who exactly knows what? But either way, I really thought this was pretty sweet. I like this chapter. I always like the trope when the main character gets to flex in front of a bunch of people that either don't know about him or didn't believe in him, and you just get to see the shock on their faces, and it's like, sweet. Now people are going to put some respect on his name. Again, that's one of those things I always enjoy seeing. Like, unless it's like everyone already thought the main character was cool, but at the same time, they're not going to be shocked. It'll be like one of those, like, oh, as expected. And it really depends on how it's handled. But when you have this fresh eyes on the main character, like, none of them have any expectations or any ideas about him. Or in this case, like, none of them even. There was no notice of Tonkaichi. There wasn't, like, one of those, like, he's either hyped up by some people in the crowd or he's looked down upon or what. They just would have probably looked at him as like, oh, who's this guy? What can this guy do? And then he just swings this 5-ton hammer down and cracks up the whole arena. Hype. Like just am I right hype. I'm really looking forward to seeing, like, more reactions at the start of the next chapter. But also what the next step is going to be. Because we see, like, these characters, like, everybody that's passing first round, you know, we're good. Now we can get into, like, is this going to be a tournament? Is there going to be more kind of, like, different kinds of competitions? I'd be fine with seeing a tournament, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be, like, if it's not, like, a tournament, imagine if it's kind of like how they're up against these nail moles, and it's like, okay, what we're going to do is you have to have, like, maybe they'll pair up with somebody, and it's like, okay, somebody's going to be building this house, and it's over, like, a time limit, and they just, like, keep unleashing monsters to go attack them, and it's like, all right, you have to defend against them in this time limit, and then there's, like, maybe, you have to break a certain time limit, but if you have, like, can survive all the way to the end, there's, like, points, but it's like, oh, they keep letting out stronger monsters, and there's, like, maybe some monster that, like, they don't expect any of the newer people to get to, but, like, Tonkaichi and, like, maybe one other character get to it, and it's, like, some big hype monster, and we get to see some cool stuff. I don't know, I got my hype on right now. Like, I liked this opening to this tournament, or battle. Who knows exactly how it's going to play out. Either way, I was happy about it, so I'll obviously look forward to the next chapter. I do generally really like Build King. I'm hoping it picks up. I really don't want to see it get axed. If it does, it'll be really unfortunate. But I've got my I've got my eggs in the basket of hoping that it continues onward, because I like Shimabakuro already, and I like what he did with Toriko. I like what he's doing with Build King, and I really look forward to what's next. So other than that, though, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this chapter, and I'd really appreciate if you thumbs up the video with a like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. Other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.